in the trunk and have to carry fossils around in my pockets anymore.
Oh, well, you're great at it.
Oh, thank you.
Do you get paid?
Whenever I
That's
went
a
to see
leading
the
question right there.
there was one that was real. It was a real person.
Yes, all of our mummies are in there.
Whether it's decent or not, it's a...
I say yes, but really I don't require all that much. So she just
loves her job.
once you get used to things like paying for college, then anything after that's kind of really.
That's really
If you love your job, though, that's the payment, right?
And this here,
Here we are. These rolls.
now, I asked a little bit what you knew beforehand. We talked a little bit about pyramids. We got somebody who knows about mummies, right? That's an awesome thing.
I know a little bit.
You know a little bit? What you got?
Not much.
No. Well, I'll tell you that we don't know a whole lot.
That they're real. They're real. There's one in this room over here that's real. It's a real person.
Oh, yes. In fact, all of our mummies in this exhibit are real. We don't have any fake mummies. How do you make them not stink? Part of it is time. The youngest mummy we have in here is about 1,700 years old. And the other part of that is the stinking that you're smelling is bacteria growing. So if it's stinking, it's really not going to be preserved for thousands of years, right? And one of the things that they do, we can talk about this as we go through as well, but one of the things that they do is they actually pack them in salt. It's kind of like, they used to not have refrigerators to preserve their meat.
Yeah.
So they would pack it in salt and that would preserve it. And can you imagine eating meat that has been preserved in salt? Do you ever salt your meat?
Sometimes.
A little bit?
Nope.
Imagine it's soaking in that salt entirely all the way through. You actually have to kind of boil it for a few days to get the salt taste out of it. But then it's really, really soft and wonderful and delicious. But I'm not much of a meat person. And I wouldn't recommend doing that with the mummies because that's not going to be good. But basically that's what they're doing whenever they mummify them. So it's to keep the bacteria away. So they wouldn't smell that much in the beginning. Once they're mummified, and then they have something like 1,700 to about 3,000 years sitting kind of in the desert sand. So they won't smell a whole lot. In fact, if you smell them now, they just kind of smell a little musty. Really
So the one in that wooden box is real?
They're all real. Absolutely, yes. In fact, there are exactly 3 replicas in this exhibit, and we're going to see them as I'll tell you what they are as we go through so that you'll know. But what is the entirety of life in Egypt? Ancient
God.
The gods, a little bit more every day than that. Yes, it's true. They believe that. But when you get up in the morning, what do you absolutely have to do?
Brush your teeth.
Brush
Take a
your
bath.
teeth. You have to use water, right?
Yeah.
How are they getting water in Egypt?
But they use the Nile Lake.
Yes, absolutely. And it is now a lake. You're absolutely right. Back then, they have actually dammed it right about there, and there's a huge lake. Actually, sorry, it's right about there. The Aswan Lake is right there from the Aswan Dam. But it also flows backwards. It actually flows south to north. It's one of the, if not the only river in the world that does this. So, and it floods. Now, it doesn't anymore because it's dammed.
Yeah, it floods because it remembers the time when one of the gods came back to life.
Yeah, that's what they said, right? So they had a pharaoh, right? We've talked about this before, and if you were our pharaoh, how old are you, sir? 13? That's a pretty darn awesome age. So 13 years old, if you were our pharaoh, that's awesome. You were in charge of everything, right? Very cool. Don't let this go to your head. But so that's wonderful. But what they said was when the Nile floods, it doesn't actually rain in Egypt.
No.
It actually rains about 1,000 miles southwest southeast, in Ethiopia. And it trickles down, and it actually just appears that when you get up one morning, all of a sudden the edge of the Nile will not be right here anymore. It'll be maybe right over here. Right? It looks, if you don't have science explaining, or you're not in Ethiopia watching the rain and then all of a sudden watching it flood in Egypt.
In the flood, actually, he can help grow the crops.
Exactly, because it's fertilizing. That really dark, black, rich silt that's actually being deposited. We would call it yuckiness whenever it floods, but they relied on that. It's kind of like hitting the geographic jackpot in the ancient world. It's awesome. So they wanted that. And they're surrounded on 4 sides by desert, so nobody's really going to attack them until thousands of years later. Everybody thought this was these were the blessed people of the world at that time, because then also they discover there's gold mines right there, and they conquer that region. So imagine having all the food you can want, the best water that you can imagine. You have a natural barrier that nobody pretty much can cross, and now you have literal money flowing into your country. Would that be awesome?
Yep.
I think so, right? Everybody loved Egypt, even the Romans. But they're gonna be the ones to finally overcome that. But first, let's walk through. What do you think? All right, and what we might do. What if we go backwards? What if we start with the mummies? What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Well, they're not quite there. You have to turn 2 corners to get there.
Yeah.
But then they're at that last corner. Let's go around here, and we'll see our first one.
I would start.
You've never been that way? Well, these are the coffins. If you're looking inside, look really close, you'll notice there's no people in these. They're coffins. There is.
This is a real one.
They're all real. Yes.
Look at his hair.
Look at his hair.
Why
Oh
does
my
he
God.
still have hair?
That's an excellent question. And mostly, he still has hair because of the way he was mummified. So when we're talking about the salt, in fact, this is that young one. Did we lose our mummy person? No, here it is. Okay. The salt, there's 2 ways to make a mummy. One is that salt version, and one is like this. Have y'all ever had maple syrup
Yeah.
on your pancakes? It's delicious, right?
No.
Custard
Yeah.
trees? No?
You don't like maple syrup?
It's pretty good.
I just never tried it.
Oh, really? Well, don't, because then you won't love it.
It's true. There's
We
that
want
as
it all
well.
the time.
Do you see this one here? So basically what they do, maple syrup comes from maple trees, right?
Yep.
But this guy, they don't have maple trees in Egypt, but this is basically that syrup. It's called resin, and whenever you dry it, it hardens. So what they do is they boil it for a few days, and what we call processing it, and they paint it basically all over on top of him. That's what's turning his face black. Is he would actually be preserved with that. If you do it like that, it's kind of like the amber that you see down in the dinosaur hall.